Welcome to today's 5-minute Bible study in the Acts of the Apostles. Today we begin to look at Acts chapter 10, which is the account of another pivotal transitional moment in the history of the early church. It tells us the account of the first Gentiles who come into the Christian movement. Now, the first 9 chapters of Acts, we have seen the church spread from Jerusalem, across Judea, Samaria, along the coastline, even further. But so far, the gospel and the movement has spread simply among the Jewish people and the Samaritans, who are cousins of the Jews. We have not yet crossed the boundary to the Gentiles. Now, you do recall, of course, that the Ethiopian became a Christian under the ministry of Philip, but the Ethiopian was already a Jewish convert. He had already converted to Judaism, so we've not yet had a Gentile simply come into the faith as a Gentile, but that's about to change. And the two main characters in this episode of the Gentiles coming to faith are a man by the name of Cornelius and also the Apostle Peter. Let's begin looking at the first of chapter 10 and this man Cornelius and how God is going to do something wonderful for him. Now, I was in Caesarea. Now, you remember Caesarea is the Roman capital of the province of Judea. That is where the Roman governor lives, and that is where most of the Roman soldiers are stationed. Now, at Caesarea, there was a man named Cornelius. He was a centurion in what was known as the Italian regiment. We know he's a centurion, that is, he provides leadership for a group of around 100. He's an important figure in the Roman military. He's from the Italian regiment. That means originally he is from Italy, stationed now in Judea. He and all of his family were devout and God-fearing. He gave generously to those in need and prayed to God regularly. One day, about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, he had a vision. Now, we're told several things about this fellow Cornelius. He's a Roman. He's from Italy. He's an officer in the Roman army. And he is a God-fearer. Now, what does that mean? In the Jewish synagogues around the world, Gentiles were allowed to worship in the synagogue if they believed in the God of Israel. If they had become convinced that the God of Israel was the true God, they could join in the worship at the synagogues. Now, these people are not officially converts to Judaism, but they are worshipers of the true God. They are called God-fearers. Now, people like the Ethiopian had officially converted to Judaism. They had become Jews by conversion. They were called proselytes. But those like Cornelius who worshiped the God of Israel but had not yet converted, had not yet officially become a Jewish proselyte, they were called God-fearers. Cornelius was one of those. He and all of his family. Now, we don't know if he had become a God-fearer in Rome. He could have been attached to a Jewish synagogue there, or if he had become a God-fearer after he was transferred and stationed in Caesarea. But we do know that he believes in the God of Israel. He's convinced he is the true God, the only God, and he worships with the Jewish synagogue. He prays regularly. He's devout. And then one day he has a vision. It's about 3 in the afternoon, which you might recall is the Jewish time of afternoon prayer. He is praying. He distinctly saw an angel of God who came. Now, angels of God are messengers of God, heavenly messengers. And the angel says to him, Cornelius. Cornelius is afraid. He says, what is it, Lord? He realizes this is a visitation from God. And the angel answered, your prayers, your gifts to the poor have come up as a memorial offering to God. Now send men to Joppa. You will find a man named Simon. He's called Peter. He is staying in the home of Simon the tanner. His house is by the sea. When the angel who had spoken to him had gone, Cornelius called 2 of his servants and a devout soldier who was also one of his attendants, probably God-fearer as well. He told them everything that happened and sent them to Joppa. During his time of prayer, Cornelius, the God-fearer, has this vision of an angel coming. And the angel gives him directions as to go and send for this man, Peter. Cornelius is seeking after God. And God in his grace is making provision for the full message of the gospel to come to Cornelius. Cornelius obeys what the angel told him. He follows the directions the Lord had sent, and he sends 3 of his men to go and find Peter and bring him back. The stage is set for the conversion of the first Gentile family. Now, what we learn from Cornelius is that whenever you seek God, when your heart is turned toward God, his grace is in rich supply. John Wesley called this prevenient grace. By that he meant the grace that goes before we're saved, the grace that goes before our conversion, the grace that is constantly calling us to God. That prevenient grace was working in Cornelius' life. And he's prepared Cornelius, by the grace God has, to now receive Peter and the message of the good news in Jesus. Cornelius is an obedient man. He knows the angel is from God, so he sends and asks Peter to come. In our next session, we'll look at what happens to Peter. He also receives a visitation from God, preparing him to go to the home of Cornelius and preach the gospel. But we'll look at that next time. But for now, we see Cornelius prepared. He is ready. He's received an angelic visitation. He and his household are ready to hear the good news in Jesus. He is about to become the first Gentile convert to the Christian faith. Hope you have a great day today, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time in our 5-minute Bible study in the Acts of the Apostles.